Welcome, everyone. If you're joining us live or if you are jumping in after the fact and watching this later, recorded, my name is Jessica Ann. I am an author here. I write on Substack. I also have a fantasy novel out called Woven in Time. I teamed up with One Brilliant Arc to start doing these indie author spotlights, and this is actually our last one before we take a break for the summer. Summertime is busy, and we're finding ourselves, we're also working on some fun other projects, so stay tuned.
Yes.
Still a collaborative effort, but yeah, we offer these indie author spotlights, and today we have Gary Baniloff.
Alanoff, yeah.
Baniloff, sorry.
I know. I know.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's Russian, but you can
Okay.
say it any way you want. It's okay. I'll respond.
Yes.
Just don't call me late for dinner.
There you
That's
go.
right.
And Jaylon from One Brilliant Arc. I'll let you guys each introduce yourselves and we'll jump into the spotlight.
Sure. So I'm Jaylon Gundiz. I am the editor-in-chief at One Brilliant Arc. We are a story studio that helps amplify voices of marginalized storytellers who are telling stories that make a difference in our world. And obviously, working with Jessica Ann, we have a special place in our heart for indie authors. So, with that said, Gary, go ahead and tell us about yourself and tell us about the newest book that you've written.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I appreciate being on here with One Brilliant Arc because you guys are for real, and I appreciate that because I
Thank
was
you.
mentioning before we got started the podcast world is filled with good people and somewhat sketchy people, and this is a good podcast, so I appreciate being on here.
Aw, thank
The
you.
most recent one that I've done is called Trust Issues, and the reason I wrote that was today, who doesn't have trust issues, right? I mean,
Mhm.
in relationships and government, anything, it's like, oh my God, are these people for real or what? And with AI, I mean, honestly, there's a lot of good things that AI brings, but there's a lot of stuff that is kind of like, is this person actually for real? That's here. I assure you, I'm real, and so are my two co-hosts there. They're
Yes.
real as well. So yay! But
Yes.
trust issues, the reason I wrote it, I basically try to take a story built around characters and built around real live things that we all go through. So, and the only way that it gets dramatic is that you've got to put some things in there that highlight some things that are kind of tragic. I mean, I look at and shine a light on some very unfortunate things that go on in real people's lives. So these two are. It's hard to believe they could even meet because he's a firefighter, paramedic, EMT, and those kind of individuals, they work a 24-hour shift and then they are off for 2 days. So during his 2 days off, he sells real estate. So he's busy all the time. Okay. She is a nuclear physicist who just got grant money to be able to build the first nuclear powered rocket that will allow faster and more efficient space travel. So you would think, well, unless she's in a fire somewhere, when is she going to run into him, right? Or she buys a house from him or something. But it's just a chance meeting. She slips and falls in a Florida rainstorm trying to get to her building. And he's just dropped off his real estate clients on the university campus and rushes through the rain with his first aid kit. And she looks at him like, "Do you carry a first aid kit with you everywhere? What is your
You're
deal?"
one of those?
You know, I'm not interested in being picked up. And he goes, "You really look like you're pretty badly scarred here. You know, I'm happy to." You know, he puts the umbrella over, takes her to the nearest building, and you know they have Taco Tuesday, and dry her off and clean her up and everything else, and it's very innocent. But she tells him a little bit about what she does, and he's interested. He's fascinated by her research, and she goes, "You didn't understand any of that, did you?" And he goes, "No, you're trying to revolutionize space travel, basically." Wow, that's a pretty interesting way of putting it, but yeah, that's what we're trying to do. And so, little by little, they find time for coffee. Little by little, they find time for lunch, and so on. And so they peel back layers. And a lot of the stories I do are what are known as slow burn romance. So those of you out there that enjoy that uh, particular trope, I think it's realistic because I think most people right now are not jumping into relationships. They may be looking for something that is meaningful, but they're not willing to rush it. And neither one of them wants to rush it, but they find each other fascinating. She calls him a slasher. He goes, "Slasher? I'm a nice guy. Come on." And she goes, "No, paramedic slash firefighter slash EMT slash
I like
realtor.
it.
So you're a slasher." And he kind of sits back and takes it, says, "Okay, I get it." But and so this is why I wrote it. And as you peel back layers of each of them, and the reader peels it back, they gain a little bit more understanding of each other and why they are the way they are. And I think the readers hopefully will find it fascinating because I rewrote it several times to make sure that it had that Melissa was Dr. Melissa. She's a very fascinating genius, basically, and strong female character. So that's my number one rule. Besides the genre of it's got to have a happily ever after, or at least a happy for now.
Yes. Is
It's got to
is
have a strong.
that a requirement for romance as
Yeah,
a genre that has to have a happily ever after?
yeah,
This
yeah.
is
It really
probably
does. I mean,
yeah.
everything that I read going into this, because I will give you a hint. Until I started writing it, I had not read any of them because guys don't read romance novels. We read self-help books. We read how to make your business a billion-dollar company and things like that. But typically, we might read some sci-fi. We might read a murder mystery or something like that. But we do not, as a as a gender, read romance for the most part. So I had to read a whole bunch of it because I found I could write it, and it was, I mean, it's fascinating. And my wife kind of rolls her eyes when she does this. She's my copy editor, and she's the
Nice.
most careful copy editor you would ever want. So thank God I can save some money that way because she's very good at what she does. That's how we met in college. She was a copy editor, and
No way.
I was a news reporter for our campus station at Florida.
Pro
Nice.
tip for any indie authors, have your copy editors built into
Yeah,
the
yeah. Marry
structure.
marry a copy editor. If you're a copy editor, marry an author, and you can do some work for them and sell their books.
There you go.
There
Yeah.
you go. I am really curious though, because like you mentioned, most men do not read romance books. So how did you find out that you could write it?
Well, I started by trying after I'd been in these different fields, TV news, newspaper news for almost a decade, and then got into real estate for 40 years. I met a lot of very interesting people. I mean, I covered Ted Bundy, the capture
Oh wow.
and trials of Ted Bundy. I covered the first 9 space shuttle launches. I covered the 1980 Democratic National Convention. I covered um, basically a variety of series. The building of the space shuttle, did a 5-part series on that. I did a 5-part series on death row where I sat inside a jail cell with
Oh.
a death row series of inmates, and that's pretty scary. I mean,
Mm.
they were all innocent,
Oh
or
man.
so they claimed. I mean,
Oh well.
you know, but you have to
I
ask
mean,
questions, and that was before, that was when I was taught in journalism school at Florida that if I had an opinion, I'd better keep it to myself. And so part of what I'm telling in this memoir is these interesting, even professors and people that I've run into, and the Bundys of the world. I ran into Ted Bundy's girlfriend in the laundry room of the hotel that the press was staying, and she was staying there too. And I kind of looked at her like, "I just have one question. I'm sorry, but why?" And she just looked at me like, "What do you mean why? I mean, why are you dating a serial killer? He's not a serial killer." She was fooled too. So she just left. She didn't want to talk to a reporter. I understood that. So I didn't follow her down the hallway and, you know, grab her laundry or something. Not a thief. I wanted a story, but whatever. Anyway, but I mean, I covered a lot of interesting things, so I figured that would be a good memoir. Well, it's taken me 2 years so far, and I'm not even halfway through. I mean, I've got a long way to go. So I decided I'd go to, creative writing classes and see what I could write, and studied the genres. And I found that romance is the number one genre in terms of most readers, most books. And so I dove into the Amazon rainforest of books, which has 44 million books
Mhm.
Yep.
in the most populated, the most trees are romance trees. So in that
Yep.
forest. So why did I do that? I don't know. I just felt I could write it. It flowed naturally. I read some bestsellers. I read Colleen Hoover. I read Emily Henry, Allie Hazelwood. Um, Oh, a whole bunch of them because I didn't want to start writing until I understood how they were writing and what made them bestsellers. And I really decided I can do this, but I'm going to write it from a male perspective, but keeping female characters strong and in place and going through a lot of traumas. I explore, I mean, I hate to even say it out loud sometimes, but I mean, sexual assault, loss of spouse,
Mhm.
grief, bringing up a child single. I mean, it's something that there are so many millions of women out there doing, and men too. But I mean, the point is, it needs to be written with a sensitivity to what actual people are going through and how women are reacting and what they do to either avoid some situations that they maybe should grasp onto and maybe fall into some situations that they should avoid. So
Mhm.
there's this exploration process through the book, and so I believe I've become an expert on conversation. So I think you could compare my books with pretty much anybody that's out there. And I've got one that's a rom-com, and basically game night, I mean, if you like comedy, that sold the best at this week's book event.
Oh, that's
I
awesome.
go, and so this is this and this is that and everything else. And they go, yeah, I think I'd like that one. Most people are looking for a laugh. They are looking for
Mhm.
something that will make them at least smile a lot. And the reviews so far have been, I belly laughed at this one. I mean, not just smiled, but I spit my coffee out when when
Those
these
are the best
when these
reviews.
guys were talking to each other, because it's about male friendship. These four guys are headed into their mid 30s, and they're all successful. You got a brain surgeon, you got a TV news reporter, because write what you know, right? And an engineer and a teacher, and they're sitting around poker night once a month, and they're going, "What in the heck is wrong with us? I mean, we're decent looking guys, we got good jobs, we're respectful. Why are we not only single, but we aren't even dating anybody actively? What is wrong? You still going out with Melissa? No, no, no. Heather? No, no, no. She couldn't put up with my hours. Whatever." So the teacher pulls out his laptop from under the poker table and goes, "Gentlemen, it's time to try the unbelievable. That is online dating." And so the next few chapters, they stumble through these brilliant guys but clueless as far as what love is all about and what relationships are all about, and they've put the wrong thing on their dating website, so needless to say that can create problems. Like, if you're not adventurous, you better not put adventurous as one of your characteristics.
Yep.
When he's plunging to the earth from a plane, he realizes the Lord's Prayer may or may not save him. So he's clinging to the guy as his Captain Lance is his dive partner, and she's all excited at the end of this thing, and he's like, "What the heck are we doing here? I don't think we can do this anymore. I really don't. I think we're done, but you know why? Because I'm a fraidy cat. That's the problem."
Oh man, that's so neat though. You highlighted that story is really an exploration into helping us understand each other. And that's exactly what we love to talk about at One Brilliant Arc, where we know that storytellers can be the ones to change the world, because they're the ones who can bridge that gap of understanding. When you have a
Yeah.
story, you get to read and experience life through someone else's eyes, through a different perspective than you've grown up and lived knowing. And that is the definition of empathy. So now you have this understanding of a different perspective in the world. And now you can kind of bridge that gap of, I don't understand you, so I'm just going to avoid you, or I'm going to treat you poorly. So
Or
I
just
think that,
ignore you. That's the
right.
thing. I mean, it's kind of like a lot of people get ignored. And I will be honest with you, I've met probably thousands now at this point of lonely people, a lot of them
Mhm.
women, who feel as though they've just been so overlooked for so long, and we are so focused as a society on physical beauty, and even in like social media and stuff, you got people pumping iron, and the even now, I mean, the Fabio styled covers that come out there where
Mhm.
he's all ripped and muscled and everything else, and I try not to do that with my work, because they may be attracted to each other for a number of reasons, and it's hard to be, I don't know, attracted to somebody who's terribly, you know disfigured. I don't know what you'd say, but I mean, there is inner beauty to every single
Mhm.
human being, and I think that's what we try to explore, and when I'm writing at least, is to try to find that inner beauty, and that's where love starts.
Mhm.
It's you can be attracted to somebody. Whoa, she looks great, or he looks, oh, he's ripped. But the bottom line is, past that first conversation, it's not a relationship. It's just, let's go dancing, and then when that's over, well, see you when I see you,
Yeah,
but yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think one trend I've noticed that I've been starting to see with authors, and especially in the romance genre, is that there's starting to be more incorporation of, like, yeah, not people without perfect bodies, people who
Right,
are older, like main
right,
characters, people like, and it's like they're representative of real people. Like
yeah,
that's what
Yes.
we look like. That's what people
Yeah.
look like. We're not all like
exactly.
perfectly toned,
Yeah.
you know.
Some of us sit at
Um,
a computer and type all day.
Well, one of my author friends, actually, we had a discussion about this, because I said, well, I notice in your book, I asked her, you don't seem to really do much description of the physical appearance of the character, and she says, I don't want the reader to focus on what they look like. So I don't
Mhm.
even sometimes put in their hair color or eyes or anything else. Stared into her eyes, or looked at his face or whatever, but it wasn't a chiseled jaw. It wasn't long blonde hair. It wasn't any of those things. It was just people interacting with each other as they should, as they
Mhm.
do on a regular basis, and it's not made up. It's not book boyfriend. I mean,
Mhm.
that's what's. I mean, honestly, some people bought game night because I put in there, because somebody said, "Well, I just my the book boyfriends, the fictional ones, are far more interesting than any of the guys I meet in real life." And I said, "Well, wait for this. I've got four book boyfriends in the same book, so you might want to check it out, but be prepared to laugh, because they will not woo you. They will just make you laugh."
That's some good sales tactics right there. It's so cool though to see. I mean, you mentioned your character being referred to as a slasher, but that's kind of what you are as well. And I feel like that's how a lot of us in the creative community are, because to be creative means to be multiple things at once. Your
Sure.
brain doesn't just like define itself in one box.
Right.
So how have you seen like, I mean, you kind of answered a little bit, but some of your different adventures in life, you said writing is your third chapter. So, how
Right.
has storytelling impacted your other adventures in life and vice versa?
Well, I just, now is a reflective period, because once you hit a certain age, and you're eligible for Medicare, things change. Your physiology changes to the point where you try to stay active. And my wife and I really are intent on cruising. So she's got us on a very aggressive cruise schedule now that we're retired, even though I'm working full time as an author, and she's working as an editor, when she's I think I got this done now, so we can go on this cruise, And so we sent it off, and KDP publishes it, and yay, another one, another one bites the dust. No, another one, another one hits the shelves. So, but I think the first chapter was I wanted to be I wanted to be a baseball player. That was my first goal, but I realized I could not hit a a really good high school curveball. And so I needed to find some other lifestyle. So I thought, well, if I can't play the sport, maybe I can broadcast the sport. Because growing up in Missouri, I would listen to the old radio team of Harry Carey and Jack Buck, who were doing the St. Louis Cardinals at that time. And then Harry went on to do the Chicago Cubs. But
I'm
when
actually
they
in
were,
St. Louis right now.
well, okay, there you
I live
go.
in St.
Well,
Louis.
go Cards. But it's kind of like they were great, and I would listen to them at 8 years old. I would have one of these little baseball transistor radios, and I would tuck it under my pillow so my parents didn't know I was listening to the West Coast game, like 11 o'clock at night. Direct feed of Harry and Jack talking about it. But I mean, I learned a lot about how to do it, to the point where I actually took out a tape recorder and I would watch a TV game and I would broadcast it. And then I would listen to the broadcast that I did to compare with, was I describing something that actually worked? I tried that with hockey. I tried it with basketball. So I figured by the time I got to college, I'm going to be a great broadcaster. So the very first day at the University of Florida, I went in and interviewed at the campus radio station. I said, I'd like a job. And they said, well, what year are you? And I said, well, I looked at my watch and it showed the date. I said, well, today is my first day on campus. And she just laughed. She goes, we only hire juniors and seniors who are journalism or communications majors. And I said, so what do I do about a job? And she says, well, the student paper moved off campus last year, so you might want to go across there. And she gave me the address and everything. So I went over there. They had just moved off campus. They're a newspaper that wound up having, I worked with Pulitzer Prize winners and people who won photographic awards and worked for the major papers and wire services and everything else for years. So I was around elite journalists at that point. And so a lot of what I did at that point was geared towards that, but I did want to be in radio or TV. And then I started getting, TV jobs. And coming out of college, I took a job in Tallahassee, which led to being in, covering the Ted Bundy murders and the trials and, everything else, capture and so on. And so I did that for about 7 years, and it was fascinating. Again, it was a career highlight. But if you're not number one in the marketplace as a station, then they're going to start firing people. So they fired 3 news directors in the 3 years that I was at the Orlando station doing the shuttle, and I was gone. I was out. So, the third one got me. So I figured I got to do something else. And those were the days when we didn't have CNN and Fox News and all this other stuff. You had 3 stations in every marketplace: ABC, CBS, NBC. And I'd been fired by CBS. So I could go to the other 2 stations, but, was that going to work or not? Got my real estate license. I said, well, I'm going to try this for a while. 40 years later to the day I retired. So,
Wow.
but I mean, I helped thousands of people at that point. I mean, I started a Remax. We did it for 20 years. We started from scratch. We sold about 5,000 homes in those 20 years. And so a lot of the area, I got to know them. I got to know the best agents. We hired just a tremendous team. But that changed too, because the whole real estate world, just like the TV news, got to be left-wing news, right-wing news, not much truth being told. So I was glad to be out of it. But the same thing happened with real estate, where as a company owner, you used to be able to give the agent like 50% or 60%. And then Remax came along and I became a broker, so I could give people 95%. but they had to pay me per month. Well, if you're a top agent, that makes a lot of sense. But if you're not, then you're going to fail. Well, I had a bunch of really top producing agents. I mean, some of the top people in all of Orlando worked in my office, but they didn't leave because they wanted to go to another office. They left because they could start their own company, work out of their home. And in a time when you didn't need all the technology, you could have your own home computer and printer and everything else. You didn't need to be paying anybody anything if you had your broker's license, and they make it very easy in Florida and some states to be able to get your license. So a lot of these things led to, I want to tell this story because a lot of people don't know that story. They think, well, it's pretty easy for a realtor to make, 10, 15, $20,000 on a commission, and they're certainly not doing that much. Well, if you see behind the scenes what they're doing and the fact that you fail 3 times for every time that you do succeed in getting a listing or getting a buyer to actually, buy a house, and you're not being paid by the minute, you're being
Mhm.
paid for the expertise that you're lending to it. So if you can get the client a deal and you're really treating them as that, just like an attorney would, a client, not a customer, not somebody just
Mhm.
buying something or selling something, but you're doing their best interests. You
Mhm.
take them and defend them and get them a value.
Mhm.
That's important, and I think for the most part, that was a story that needs to be told as well. So a lot of these stories are going to be going into the memoir, but in the meantime, fiction is just quicker, isn't it? I mean, Jessica, is it?
It's
Is it?
so fun too.
I mean, for me, it doesn't take more than 2 months to read it, revise it, and then
Oh wow.
write it, and then turn it over to my wife, and in a week or two she's got it ready to go to the publisher.
Yeah, that's the one benefit, like romance novels, people expect to be short, so
Yeah.
they're probably not, you can definitely, and the romance readers definitely are more voracious and want those stories more
Yeah.
often. It's definitely a different
Yes.
tactic than I have as fantasy, speculative fiction.
Sure.
My book's sitting at 500 pages.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Well,
like you find.
the first couple I did were like 160. It was just barely novel length, and then
Mm,
I worked with a cover artist who's also very good, but also my formatter, and so she did a little bit bigger print in the
mhm.
book, and she could do flourishes at the beginning of the chapters and stuff and make
Mhm.
it look fancier than it would. Now I haven't gotten to painted covers or edges yet. Do you do
Mhm.
painted edges,
I
Jessica?
haven't. I'd like to do a special edition. They're just
Okay.
so expensive.
Well, that's the problem. I mean, I'm going. It costs how much? I do that a lot. How much is that again? I'll have to get back to you as soon as I can put that in my
Yeah,
budget.
I think my plan for like a special edition would be once I have book, so mine's a trilogy. So
Right.
having book 3 coming out, I think that would be like a good time for me, like get the entire, special edition type of thing. So
Paint it.
Yes, for sure. Yes. There you
I'm a
go.
few years away.
Okay. Well, I'm doing my first trilogy. The first one is should be coming out by the end of the month.
Oh
So
wow.
that's my first attempt at a
Exciting.
trilogy. It's a 15-year arc that takes
Mm,
these two young people, because it's more of a kind of a young adult. I mean, we follow their story from the time that they're like in middle school through. Um, I don't want to give too much away, through the Olympics and the NFL. Let's just put it
Oh
Okay.
that way.
wow.
And then
Okay.
and it takes 3 books to tell it. And I leave as a cliffhanger: is she gonna make it in the Olympics or not?
Ah, there
Okay.
we go.
Read book 2 and you'll find out how she did.
Yeah.
I like it.
You got to
That's
leave
so
people
cool.
wanting more. I did the
That's
same thing in
right.
mine.
Yes.
But
Yes.
be prepared that they will yell at you for getting book 2 out quickly.
Well, I
Yes.
want people to yell at me because that means they care.
Yes,
There you
exactly.
go.
And they want
Yeah.
to read more. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Being, having all these stories to tell, you've had a lifetime of meeting really interesting people. Do you find yourself putting those kinds of people into your stories, or do you see pieces of those people in the characters that you create?
Yeah, well, my wife and I kind of have a character catalog of people that we can have like an inside joke about. The funniest was this lady who, God love her, she was sitting at our big table, for dinner every night, and she was there with her sister-in-law. Now, the husband apparently had passed away, because every time that a conversation about anything came up, she would say, "Oh, Dr. Bob would have loved these steaks." So
Aw.
we're trying not to probe too much, but after 2 or 3 days of this, said, "I hate to ask, but how long has it been since you lost Dr. Bob?" And she said, 12 years. And this is my look. Um, I understand grief. I understand it can be forever. 12 years, you're still mentioning how he liked his steak to complete strangers? So, in this trilogy, I've created Dr. Bob, the original.
There we go. I'll bet that he was very, very particular
Yeah,
about his
he,
steaks
Probably.
he was a
if he
nice
was
guy, a
remembered.
wonderful stepdad, and a credit to us all.
Amazing. What do you hope that as your readers are reading these books, what's your hope that they'll take away? What feeling do you hope that they'll leave with?
Well, I think the first thing, obviously, as any kind of entertainer has to entertain. So whether you're a singer, you're an author, you're a producer, you do anything in an artistic, as a podcaster, you got to be entertaining. You got to make people want to listen, watch, whatever, read. But the second thing I don't think is common now, and that's one of the main focuses I have, is inspiration. I think we need as much inspiration as we can in our country and in our world, and I think readers uh, grasp that fact. I hope they do, because those are the two reasons I write. I want it to be fun to read, but I also want it to be inspiring. In other words, how do they get through these crazy things that, I had that happen to me, or I know I have a friend that had that happen to them, or whatever. um, and living these situations on page after page after page, and then finding a route to get
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
that fulfillment, and a way of overcoming, and finding a path that works. And it may not always be pretty. It might not always be something that is easy, certainly,
Mhm.
but they get there. And the getting there sometimes makes it worth the while.
Mm, that's so true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's kind of that's the most important thing that stories can give us, I think, because, like you said, readers are not only looking to be entertained, but I think readers, especially, even more so than moviegoers, are searching for something deeper
Yeah.
because they're reading, they're immersing themselves in these different worlds and these different people's perspectives to find something that they're not finding in themselves or in the world around them. So, in offering not only that escape, but you're offering them a chance to get the courage and the hope that they need to go back into their world with a wider perspective, understanding more people, understanding more situations, having the tools inside of them to be able to know that they can get through it because they're inspired by this character who did. And I think that that's a gift that authors have to give that is sometimes overlooked. A lot of times authors don't get appreciated for that as much as they should.
Well, it's how you write it, and I know you do the same thing, Jessica. But it's kind of like, how do you get across the point that this is not just another woman, not just another
Mhm.
guy, and how do I relate to it? Because we're
Mhm.
all individuals, we're all different, but I think in the final analysis, we are all more alike than we are different. And I think that's something, as a country, we really need to pay attention to, because there's so much division, and there's so many people that, their families are divided, because
Mhm.
one person is just far right and one person is far left, and you're evil. No, you're not evil. You have a different perspective. And
Mhm.
and that's why I think just telling the truth is a big deal. And in some cases, I've actually used, because I'm I do a lot of things. I'm president of our church council, and so I do a lot of work with charity. and we're fortunate that we've made enough that we can live, but work with a lot of people who are hungry. They have a choice, and it's whether they feed their kids tonight or whether they feed themselves, or a little bit for each. And that's a very painful situation to be in, when you have to only get the cheapest dollar food store kind of thing. It's 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 reprehensible how we got to this point. And I don't blame Republicans or Democrats or anything, independents. we I blame the government for not having it, because being able to travel the world, we've seen what other countries look like. And just having come back from Norway,
Mm,
that's a very happy country.
yes.
Now they're cold a lot of the year, but they don't care,
But
because
they
they
take
have
care of their people.
they have
Yes.
free medical care, they have free education,
Yeah.
they're happy. And we don't have that. We have a struggle for the lower, I would say 40 to 45% of the public is
Mhm.
struggling right now. And that's painful and difficult. And so I applaud anyone who's doing anything to make it better. And so if the government cuts off all resources for people who are poor, we got to do something about it. So the churches are doing it, and the nonprofits are doing it, and the Second Harvest food banks are doing it. But everybody can do something. You've got
Mhm.
I always talk to people about, you've got three things going for you. You've either got money, you got time, or you got talent. Now, you might not have money, so give of your talent or give
Mhm.
of your time. If you don't have time because you're working all the time and you're trying to make income, give of your money. There's
Mhm.
something that everybody has to give if they do it. For me, now, I think giving back and giving people inspiration and maybe a little bit of hope along the way, and maybe a few laughs,
Yeah.
brighten their day a little bit. It makes, if I can make a few more people feel good today, that's what I'm going to do.
That's
Mhm.
great. Yeah. I think that is a wonderful message. And like you were saying with your characters, like I think stories and characters have that, they are that bridge because they
Yeah.
show the human side. They show that we all have, like you said, we all have more alike than we do different. And I think that like when you're inside someone's character, you're able to see that human side of them. So I think
Uh,
that
and I
is
also
awesome
have,
and why we need more stories.
I
Yes.
will say, I will say, some of my male characters fall faster. The women hold on, and they're reluctant to give too much of themselves, and so they just hold back and just hold on, buddy, and he's just, oh, but I must, I must date you, I must be with you, and
I
cool it,
think if I could get really philosophical here, I almost feel like that's a picture or an illustration of how, um, when you have lived in a situation, grown up with the perspective of you have to so carefully guard yourself, as opposed to you've grown up with the perspective that you can have hope and hope is more often realized. Um, I think that that makes the difference of whether you can accept goodness in your life or whether you're guarded against it.
hmm
So there's another a good thing that storytellers give us is they help us get insight into
Mhm.
why it's important to change our perspective sometimes.
sure.
So
Well, and
yeah.
and I've included some moments like in Too Soon for Love. It's basically a tragedy with two love stories wrapped around it, and he's laying flowers at his wife's grave, and he's 2 years later, he's still grieving mammothly about her situation, and will he ever find anybody to help mother his child, and take care and go on. And he finds a friend who's willing to do a memorial run in her honor and raise money for cancer research and so on. And I know people who are doing this kind of stuff, so it's kind of like, this is reality. And I'm
Mhm.
trying to just shine a bright light on some of the things that prayer can do sometimes to help, because skeptics are like, well, I've never seen God. Well, I've never personally had, a Mel Brooks moment, these 10 or 15 10 commandments, you know, but do you believe in science? Well, there's an atom that you can't see, so
Mm.
that mean it's not there? No, it's just subatomic. So maybe you ought to believe. You look at a mountain, you look at a waterfall, you look at people's face when they're smiling, you look at a child. There's God.
Mm, there's that goodness, that energy there that's
Yeah,
undeniable. And
yeah.
bringing more positive energy to that by your belief, by your hope, by your love is so powerful.
Thank
So, again, storytellers who are listening, this is a great place to end because we want these to be inspiring to you as well, these interviews. But if you are a storyteller, the way that you can help the world is by giving of your talent of telling stories that help other people feel seen. So do what Gary's doing, give
you.
of your talents, give of your time, and you'll see how much of a difference it makes, even if it feels like
Mhm.
you're doing nothing, because the ripple effect is there. So,
It is.
Gary, to wrap us up, do you want to tell people where they can follow you to hear about your books that get released?
If you just type in my name.com, GaryBalanoff.com, I'm on Amazon in every format. The last two are on Kindle Unlimited, so you can get them for free. Just remember this: if you don't read the book within the first 30 days, I don't get my $2. So if you buy it, if you could just remember to read it in 30 days, not first night, that's okay. But I know it's only $2, but it means a lot in being able to,
Mm.
publish the next one. So
Yes.
yeah, go online and see that. And by all means, every author appreciates Goodreads. If you
Mm.
go on Goodreads and
Yes.
post a review, I can even handle the bad ones. I don't. They don't all have to be 5 star. I've been very fortunate in getting a lot of fives and a few fours, but not much below that. So that's great, and I appreciate every one of you for doing that. But I can handle the occasional two. Don't give somebody a one. Just DNF that sucker and don't go there because that's hurting somebody. That can ruin a person's string of fives, because it's the average it out to 3.5 and now it doesn't look as
Right.
good.
No.
There we go. Pro tips there, you guys. Be nice readers. We will be nice authors. You please be nice readers.
There you go.
We're fighting hard to work through our imposter syndrome and self-doubt over here.
There
Be
you go.
kind. Treat us nicely. But yeah, if any of you are writers and you're worried that the book that you're working on isn't quite ready to face those harsh reviewers, definitely bring it to One Brilliant Arc. We work with authors all the time to help them get their books to the version of the story that is worth telling. And Jess, do you want to share how you help authors too?
Yeah. Yeah. I also offer author services. I do author coaching. I do beta reading, like creative coaching also. So if you, yeah, have a story, but you're afraid to tell it, or you need help with just the actual publishing process, because it can be really overwhelming, or the marketing piece of it after publishing, I offer assistance to authors and creatives in those areas.
Yes. So thank you again, everyone who joined us for this conversation. Thank you, Gary, for sharing your stories. And
Thank you.
we'll see
Thank
you
everybody
all.
who came. Thank
Yes,
you.
have a great summer, everyone.
Take
Thank
care.
you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.